Questions of any kind? Or complaints about anything you want to complain about Hajar? This would be a good time to do it. I can write things down. And
Hi, I'm Sandeep Kishore.
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to ask, do you think it would ever be possible in the next 10 years if Cornell would ever offer a loan repayment or debt relief scheme for physicians who went into primary care, both domestically or internationally? I mean, I understand that we're a $1 billion med school, and I imagine that revenue from students in medical school don't account for a large part of it, and that it could be subsidized. And that would, in some ways, remove the barriers that some folks feel from their heavy loans of going to an Ivy League undergrad and Ivy League med school and can't afford to do primary care in Rwanda.
Yeah, it's a very, very important point. And in case you didn't hear the question, as always, ask a very important and tough question: is why don't universities have? I'll put it less diplomatically than he did. With a multi-billion-dollar endowment and building buildings and all this stuff, how come we can't have loan forgiveness programs for people doing the right thing? The reason for that, first of all, I think it would be great if we could do things like that throughout our society. I try to always be open with you in our correspondence, as you know, and my first concern right now at this university is not losing the economic diversity of the undergraduate student body. We're the sixth most economically diverse university in the country of our caliber. You should be proud of that. We're the sixth most economically diverse university in the United States of our caliber. And we're doing that by putting enormous resources into financial aid, because so many families whose kids are currently here now are falling off in their ability to pay the very high tuitions that we have. And so I've been focusing unapologetically on undergraduate financial aid, but this professional student funding and graduate student funding and MSTP kind of funding is a huge unanswered problem. And it's just as true for law students. It's just as true for students in other social science areas or humanistic students in cultural areas, or people who might work as analysts of various kinds in various settings, that it's very, very hard to do this if you have to take such a loan burden that you have to go out and do something, really, really remunerative as soon as you get out. So it's definitely on the table. As always, I'm being honest, it's not the very front burner for me right now, but it's very, very important. I grant you that. I do agree with you. And thanks for coming. You know all this stuff already, and yet you came. You must have been worried about the thing about attendance. It's good. Yeah. None of you actually work directly for me. I'm like the figurehead, if you haven't figured that out yet. You work more sort of for Hajar. So what you got to do is go to Hajar's talks, if you can stand it. I mean, that would be good. Any more questions or comments? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm the first year.
Can you turn the thing down? Yeah, thanks. It's all right.
I think it's great that Cornell's really doing a great job of partnering with higher education abroad. Has there been any consideration for providing higher level jobs to match the education abroad, so that you can prevent or kind of deal with any brain drain that might occur?
That's such an important point. That's the point of trying to do the education in Ethiopia, for example, there in Ethiopia. Now, the more technical the field and the more infrastructure dependent the education and training, the less that's possible. And so, for example, Dr. Sheikh and Dr. Hajar have worked out the research infrastructure in Doha so that people can actually do the same cutting-edge research there that they can do here. And there's no reason that all of it has to be done on the Upper East Side. And once you come to the Upper East Side, you tend to want to, stay there, not so much because of the seafood and nightlife, but because they get to hear me lecture. That's probably the biggest draw to the Upper East Side in general, is hearing me talk in the Eurus Auditorium. So it's very, very, very important to try to find a way, to deal with this. And I wish I had something more concrete to say, but that's the reason for having that focus on doing as much of the training locally as possible in times where that's not possible. And even now in Doha, there's going to be a lot of research that will have to be done partly here and partly there. It's going to take discipline. And getting back to Sonny's question, about loan forgiveness, you can imagine financial incentives for doing that. You can also imagine draconian agreements that you'd make somebody sign something where he or she owes so much service locally for doing something. And all those things have been tried and are being tried in various settings. The best thing, I think, eventually will be to have enough capacity for even graduate and professional education locally that the people can and will see it as part of their own communities. But that transition phase between the lights being out half the time and I don't know what, the new medical research building, something along that spectrum makes it tough and makes brain drain a real issue. But things do change. Things have changed a lot in India. Things have changed enormously in China, and that brain drain is changing direction pretty impressively. Maybe one more, or should we stop? We should stop. Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you.